Hello, Gary Smith here. Let's talk about expected revenue. Now, why is this topic so important? Well, if you're using it correctly, expected revenue is a very reliable way to forecast sales. It's a sales forecast that will stand up to scrutiny and one that you can defend. And I'll explain exactly why that is. So in this video, we'll cover the formula for calculating expected revenue, how it's different from the weighted pipeline, how to use expected revenue for sales forecasting, and by the way, I'll also explain why some sales managers don't approve of expected revenue forecasts and why I think they're wrong. We'll also talk about target tracking using expected revenue, and I'll show you exactly how to create an expected revenue report. So let's get started. First thing, exactly how do we calculate expected revenue? Here's the formula. It's quite simple. It's the opportunity amount multiplied by the probability. Now you might be thinking, hang on, that sounds like the formula for the weighted pipeline. And you'd be right, but there is an important difference. The weighted pipeline only includes deals in the funnel, open opportunities, in other words. Expected revenue includes the weighted pipeline plus won deals. Now, of course, the probability of winning a won deal is 100%. So we're taking the full value of won deals plus the weighted pipeline to make the expected revenue. For example, if you have a pipeline deal at $50,000 and 25% and a won deal at $10,000, your expected revenue is $22,500. Of course, you don't need to calculate that number for yourself. Salesforce does it for you using the expected revenue field. And you can use that field in a report to give you the total expected revenue for the month or quarter or year. Now, why does expected revenue give you a reliable sales forecast? And incidentally, why don't some managers approve of expected revenue? Well, you could take the view that sales deals are binary. In other words, let's say you have a deal for $10,000. You're either going to win it, in which case it's worth $10,000, or you're going to lose it, in which case the deal is worth zero. So the value of the opportunity for your sales forecast is either $10,000 or it's zero, and therefore it should be in your sales forecast at $10,000, or it shouldn't be in your sales forecast at all, not some fudged number called expected revenue somewhere in between. However, and you know, I don't care how well you qualify opportunities, it's still very hard to predict the outcome of the sales process. In other words, if you have a whole bunch of opportunities, we don't know for sure which we'll win and which we will lose. I mean, if we did know that, we wouldn't bother to chase the opportunities we're going to lose. Expected revenue solves that problem by taking the weighted value of the pipeline deals and the full value of opportunities. We're getting a balanced view. We're getting the most likely outcome across the sales team. And that's why expected revenue is a reliable sales forecast. We're reflecting the uncertainty in the sales process to produce a likely revenue forecast. And I think that's an approach and a sales forecast that you can justify and defend in front of the board. It's also why we use expected revenue in our very popular JSP Target Tracker app. Let me show you an example. Here's the sales target for Dave Apthorpe for the current month. You can see that Dave's revenue target is $50,000. He's already won $20,000. His pipeline is $60,000, which on the face of it sounds great, but you can see his weighted pipeline is only $25,000. That means Dave is forecasting a $5,000 shortfall for the month. Not only can we look at Dave, but we can also see the overall sales team and their performance against quota for the current period. Again, the target, won deals, weighted pipeline, and the forecast variance based on the expected revenue. Now, all that said, I do think there are a couple of things you can do to improve your expected revenue forecast, in particular to make sure the opportunity probabilities are as accurate as they can be. The first, and this is really quite simple, you can get salespeople to manually adjust the probability where appropriate. For example, if it's an existing customer or the salesperson can articulate a particularly compelling reason why we will win the deal, then you can update the probability for any given stage. In fact, it's a common misconception that you have to stick with the probabilities linked to each stage. You can manually update them. The second thing to consider is automatically updating the probabilities in the background. Here's an example of what I mean. In this case, for example, the existing customer win rate is about 50% higher than the win rate for new customers. Remember, that's the overall win rate, but it tells us about the ratio between the two numbers. So we can use a workflow rule or a flow to automatically update the opportunity in the background. Incidentally, if you look at our accompanying blog post, there's a screenshot of the flow you can use to do exactly this. And of course, you can take a similar approach if the win rate varies significantly between territories, regions, markets, or even salespeople. For example, the win rate in a new territory that you're expanding into might be significantly lower than that for an established region. Now, it's pretty straightforward to create an expected revenue report. You need an opportunities report, sum the expected revenue, add some grouping and some filters, and run the report. Incidentally, if you find the expected revenue field isn't visible either in the report or the opportunity, check the field level security. Make sure it's visible for all users. So here's what you can do next. 3 things. First, take a look at our JSP Target Tracker app. There's a link just below this video. Second, read the blog post. I've given lots more details on using expected revenue and links to other valuable content. And third, where appropriate, start adjusting the opportunity probabilities to improve your expected revenue forecast. And don't forget, you can always get in touch with us to talk about any aspect of getting more benefits from Salesforce. So make sure you do that today as well. Bye for now.